All right, after we finish up with Josh, and I'm going to let him speak because I've really given my opinion, and I'd like to answer any other questions that he has. We're going to go to Dave, Matt, Jim, and others, 866-582-9933, taking your calls the rest of the hour. Well, what's your take on it, Josh? Let me ask you.
Well, I mean, I don't particularly really have a strong take. I'm sort of wondering if like an invasion is imminent, considering of all this talk, of all this hostility. Yet at the same time, I'm wondering if that's even possible, considering all the resources in Iraq. I mean, if you Google Earth Baghdad and also Tehran is so much larger. I'm sure there would be a huge backlash if there was an invasion in Iran that wouldn't be sustainable. So, I mean,
I think that's why they're trying to go soft route. I agree with you. I think that's why they're trying to go soft route. I don't think they want to have an invasion like Iraq. Number one, I don't think that they're going to have the same kind of military successes. And right now they're in the process of redistributing forces from Iraq into Afghanistan. You know what I mean? To try to even put more military bases there. So I kind of agree with you there.
Sort of model.
What's that?
Sort of the frog, boiling the frog.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, people are now accustomed to the fact that we're not leaving Iraq and Afghanistan. The anti-war movement is dead. I mean, we had Cindy Sheehan in here about a week and a half ago, and she's like, yeah, it was okay to be anti-war when Bush was in, but now that Barack Obama is just continuing what his administration did, you got to shut up because the left isn't in it anymore. Their heart's not there. So, I don't think I've never been one of those guys that we were definitely going to have a hard conflict with Iran. I mean, they hyped it up. They had that boat incident where they tried to say the Iranian boat was taunting U.S. ships.
It might have tried, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. They may have tried under a different administration, but I don't know if they want to do that. In light of a major terror attack, maybe. Maybe, and that's a big maybe, but I would say that'll probably have to be an international terror attack so that we can get...
I just want to bring back quickly, now the children are basically westernized, the youth, and most of the country, what is it, I don't know if it's a quarter or whatever, is 20-something. I mean, in the next 10 years or so, before, there would have like a nuclear delivery system to the U.S., which would become an actual threat. Before that actually happens, wouldn't there be sort of an internal sort of change, with the youth, the westernized youth taking over? So it's sort of almost as like a devil's advocate question.
Well, I would say this. I don't think that the youth are going to be able to have that much of an influence on society outside of the cultural, clothing and the way people act towards Western films. I don't necessarily think that they're going to have a huge impact on the way that their government is run. I think it'll be
nice funding, to really have an impact on their society.
Well, I mean, it would be nice to believe that they could have an impact on their society, but I don't know if they can do so politically. Maybe they can get some things changed here and there, but the root of this to me is that as long as it pushes towards globalization and international regulation, they don't care what kind of freedoms they give them. They don't care how westernized they get, as long as that westernization is part of this global program towards this march of a new world order, my man. I thank you for the call. Dave in Virginia. Dave, you're on the line.
Yeah, you know anything about the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve?
The board? Are you talking about the actual board of the Federal Reserve, the people that get appointed? The board of directors. It's not the governor. Yeah, but they're not governors. They're not called governors.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, but
that's what they call it now. From their
from what I understand, there's 13 of them. They get 8-year terms, and they are elected by our elected officials. Not elected. I shouldn't say elected. In other words, they're appointed.
You're thinking of a different thing.
Okay, so then I don't know about this.
All right, the Federal Reserve has what they call a board of governors.
Okay.
They used to be called a board of, I don't know, something else. But my point is it has 7 members. One is a chairman. The next one is the vice chairman. And then they have, like, 5 other guys that do various things, Well, there's something kind of interesting going on right now with them. See, 2 of those seats are vacant.
Okay.
And it's never been done before in the entire history of this particular
Well, what's your take on why they're vacant? Do you think that the changes are so broad and overreaching that they want to wait until they put somebody in there that they feel they can trust? Or
see, here's the thing, and I look at this whole thing from the people that are doing it, because then I can kind of get an idea of how they're thinking and where they're going, and maybe avoid something. I don't know. But if you look at the guys on this board, they have like a little notation beside it. And again, this is on their Federal Reserve's own website. They have like resigned, reappointed, died, stuff like that, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they have a date. Well, these guys are appointed every 14 years.
Okay.
But if you read the laws on how they appoint each other,
mm-hmm.
it's written in a way so that any of these guys can remain on this board indefinitely.
So what you're telling me is even the term limits that they say they're imposing on themselves are a joke, and they're
not
not really enforced.
Limits.
Okay.
Because they can go around them easy.
Okay.
Like if one person jumps in to serve a temporary spot for another person, he's given such and such extra years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this whole thing is just impossibly enormous. I mean, their whole thing is if they control the environment that the problem is in, then they control the problem.
Well, that's why they're giving them more and more power. I mean, I don't understand how...
But see, they don't really need it.
Well, I disagree. You know, they need it when this dollar collapses, and they have to say, listen, you know, the dollar collapsed. We really want the United States to still be a first world nation. The way we're going to do this, because if you're not a first world nation, then other nations are going to collapse, and boy, we're going to have a global economic depression worse than the Great Depression in this country, and we'd really hate to say that. So I really do think that they do need more power. They need more oversight after themselves. I don't think that they're happy that Ron Paul was able to get this many co-sponsors on 1207 off the bat.
See, here's the thing. What if he didn't? What if he didn't get the sponsorship need? Wouldn't the American public be outraged?
No, because the American public doesn't even know about 1207. If I went outside tomorrow, okay, and I went down to one of the main streets on Austin, and I sat outside the Capitol where people are supposed to know things political, I'll guarantee nine out of 10 people, even though Ron Paul is a Texas congressman, won't even know about it. 9 out of 10. I'll go. You know what? I wouldn't be shocked that if I went away from the Capitol building and I went down to 6th Street, I could pull 19 out of 20 people who wouldn't know about it. The mainstream media has totally blacked it out. It's not in any newspapers. It's not on any shows. The only show that even glimpsed at 1207 was CNBC, and the commentator said, well, you know, if they actually do edit or audit the Federal Reserve, it'll have to shut down. It'll be utter economic chaos, so we can't allow that to happen. I mean, he didn't even give it a chance. So,
but what's going to happen when we do audit them and we do?
We won't audit them. Listen, we won't audit them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Let me explain. Let me explain what's going to happen.
Get the true information anyways.
So. Well, that's true, but it'll never get to that point. That's the point. The whole point of this.
Exactly. That's
here's my point. Well, it's not going to get to that point, but we have to use what transparency we have to show people why it didn't get to that point. In other words, somewhere down the line, we have to be the ones responsible to show people that this did hit the House, that this was on the floor, that the media did not cover this. You know, that you need to call your senator and make it go to the Senate floor because it might pass on the congressional floor. If it can pass in the House, we can make an even bigger deal about it. Maybe we can break it into the mainstream media. But the point is to get it to the point in the mainstream that it does not only go through the House, but goes through the Senate. And again, Obama has to show his true colors and veto it. That's the goal for me. To have everybody shown that this guy is a demon, this guy is a puppet of the banksters, and this guy is going to protect them at all costs. That's my goal on this, because I'm not under any delusions that they're actually going to audit the Federal Reserve. But I do think that we can get it up to the presidency and have him veto it. That's my opinion. I thank you very much for the call, Dave. Very insightful stuff. Let's go to Matt in Tennessee. Matt, you're on the line.
Hey, Jason,
yes,
how's
Matt.
it going?
It's all right.
I saw the MTV commercial. It wasn't even commercial. The MTV little thing about the FEMA camp, people taking people away.
Yeah, there were two of them. There was the one with the family, and then the second one that I didn't get to describe. It was in a New York City subway, and everybody's kind of on the subway. Just if anybody's ridden a subway in a major city, it's got that feel. You know, everything's flashing, everything's lighting. All of a sudden, the door opens. Everybody down on the ground, down on the ground. All of a sudden, men in black uniforms, they just grab people up, and quicker than you could know it, you know, they focus on this one old man that just can't believe what he's seeing, but he can't do anything about it either. And I like how at the end of each of those, you know, they zoom out and they flash frame, and all of a sudden it's really related to the Nazi camps as well.
Well, I mean, what do you think? Was that like a warning about some kind of like road?
Oh, you bet your ass it was a warning. Listen, Loose Change Final Cut got play on MTV on some of the Canadian stations. You know, they did big blurbs about us. Yeah, of course they did. You type in Loose Change Second Edition, I mean, it made current TV several times. That's the reason. Listen, there's a lot of people out there that do know what's going on, that aren't part of this system, that do work in media, that get out the truth when they can. But, you know, I mean, History Channel International on 9/11 played our movie in 13 different countries, including Australia, you know, and New Zealand. And that's why the History Channel had to make a 2-hour hit piece in this country, headed up by NBC Productions and Hearst Publications with Lester Holt, Mr. CFR, just completely lying about us.